Sup, guys? It's Toad back with you again. There's something with daylight savings going on. I don't even know what time it is. It's March 9th, I think. Who even knows, man? Do we lose an hour? I don't even know. Hopefully, I'm on time with all this. Yesterday looked like it was going to be a terrible day, and it wound up being only a slight losing day with the way it worked out. Really, really bad start. I started out, I think, 1-4 after Princeton got the win. Then we had a bunch of bad losses. I mean, what can you do? It's just not on the right side of a whole bunch of those. I don't even remember what I was on, so I don't know if I want to really rehash every single one of those. Although I know I had at least one favorite that won the game outright but didn't cover, which was Bradley. Although that was a little bit later in the day, Bradley, and that game was just way too close for too long. And then they finally got it done right near the end. And then we had nice turnaround in the night slate, though, with a bunch of wins late. Baylor tried to blow it for me as they had the lead for a lot of that game. They were beating Houston, and then Houston turned it on and took the lead. It was Houston up like 9 late, but Baylor rallied late to get back within that number and lose but cover. So I wanted the money line, but whatever. We did get the money line on Fairfield, so that was when everything started turning around. I started getting every bet right from then on. Fairfield was a nice win for me there. And then we had St. Thomas won in the late slate as well. And lost the early hockey game. Montreal not even scoring in their game, losing 1-0. I told you I thought it was going to be a low-scoring game. Maybe I should have looked for the under in that game. But it would have basically just been it would have basically just been because Calgary just plays all unders. So, like, that would have been the handicap there. And in that case, it was right. But, man, I did not expect Montreal to go completely scoreless. And then the LA Kings, I did split that bet, half money line and half puck line. So that wound up being a slight win for me. Took overtime to do it. So it was probably not the right side. They did not do well. The Boston teams did well yesterday, though, with the Boston Bruins, my Boston Bruins, getting it done. And then the Bruins, their first game without Marchand, getting it done 4-0 at Tampa Bay. Pretty ridiculous. Vasilevsky just had some weird lapses in that game. The Bruins, their third line, I think, scored at least 2 goals. They had one goal that was from almost center ice. They just flipped it towards the goal, and Vasilevsky just wasn't expecting it, and it went in. Very strange game. It was a 1-0 game into the third period, and then the Boston Celtics beat the LA Lakers, so I am obviously happy about that. Celtics looked pretty good. Again, they started getting complacent, though, after they had a great third quarter. They were blowing the Lakers out by 20 and then decided, we're just going to take our foot off the gas, as the Celtics do a lot. But at least in this case, they turned it back on a little bit after it got to, I think it probably got to within single digits. And then the Celtics were like, nope, let's finish this off. And they did, and won by double digits and covered. So would have been a little bit of a sweat if you laid the points with the Celtics, which is the way that I leaned in that game. And Bradley, by the way, well, maybe I'll talk about it when I talk about Bradley Drake, but I was going to say part of that handicap, which I didn't even mention yesterday, was that Bradley, they have a lot of fans that show up for that Arch Madness in St. Louis because they don't have to travel that far. They're located somewhere in Illinois that's not that far away, I don't think. So they get a lot of fans showing up for that thing. So the fans do turn out for it. So they're going to have a lot of fan support in today's game as well in the final. A big game against Drake. Drake's fans also show up, but I'll talk about that game for a bit. I don't have a play on that one, but I will talk about it when I get to it. And then the other thing I forgot to mention the day before that was for the Spurs. I thought they were going to be spurred on a little bit by having Wemba. He actually joined them for that trip, at least the part out to California. So whatever's going on with his blood clot issue or whatever, it was deemed that he was healthy enough to join the team, so he joined them for that game. So I thought that was going to be an extra motivator for them, and that just didn't happen. Sort of like, we're going to win one for Wemby again as he's back with us now. But, oh well. All right, let's take a look at today's slate, man. College basketball, of course, we got a lot going on. If you want me to jump to tournament action first, that's what I'll do. Yeah, I mean, it's up to me, obviously. I'll just do it as long as I just scroll down through the extra games if there are any, continue to do the tournament stuff and not miss any of it, which I did yesterday. Well, I didn't miss any of it. I just had to come back to it at the end after the SWAC was down on the extra slate, and then the rest of the conference tournaments were below that. Anyway, congratulations, by the way, to the two teams that have made it into the dance, which is SIU Edwardsville with a pretty easy win, actually, over Southeast Missouri State over SEMO. There was a huge scrum early in that game after SEMO was out to a big early lead. Huge scrum for the ball, and one of SIU Edwardsville's players looked like he got elbowed in the temple or something. He was bleeding all over the place, even though it looked like he wasn't even in the scrum. It looked like it was almost like a UFC fight. He's got blood coming down his face. They just stitch it up like right on the bench there, and then he comes back into the game. And whatever that case was, SIU Edwardsville went on a huge run immediately when that happened and then never looked back. So they got the win. They will likely be in the first four games in Dayton in one of those 16 versus 16 matchups for the privilege of getting blown out by a 1 seed. So, but congratulations to them. They have joined the field. They're the first official team to get into the dance, and they have never been before. So congratulations to them. The other team that clinched yesterday was Omaha, University of Nebraska Omaha, who also enter the dance for the first time. I don't know where they're going to be. I'll have to redo my bracketology and see where I think they're going to wind up. They might wind up somewhere around the 15 line, but I'll have to look and see. You know that I think that they're fraudulent, and that's going to come into play today because guess what? Even though they're in the tournament already, they're playing today as well in the conference final. The reason they're already in the tournament is because it's one of those situations where the team that they're playing, St. Thomas, is still in transition period, so they're still ineligible, even though they're one of the best teams in the Summit League and better than Omaha, in my opinion, as we'll find out in a little while. But if they win this game, they can't get into the tournament. So that is that for St. Thomas. So regardless of the outcome, Omaha is in. And I don't know if it's one of those things where it's because Omaha was the regular season winner, so it falls back to them, or if it's because they made the final. But either way, in this case, it was both. So I don't know. I might have to look up the rules on that, but it sets up a situation. Well, I'll talk about when I talk about those that game, but it's happened a few times recently, and it is a weird situation. All right. We got the Coastal, which, well, I should refuse to call it that, as I keep saying. I refuse to call it that, but I'm just reading off the screen here. The Colonial is in action with 4 more games today with Drexel and Towson here. Towson enters the fray, as I believe they're the 1 seed here. Drexel won the 8-9 matchup yesterday against Elon. Drexel, that was their first game in the tournament. They had an easy win over Elon yesterday. Towson up from 2.5 to 4 with juice. But I will tell you right now, I do not agree with that move. 68% of tickets, 98% of the cash coming in on them. I don't really get why the line is moving up like this, because Ken Palm has this being a really close game. He's got Towson being like a top 25 overrated team in the country, like top 25 in luck index. So this Towson team, I really don't think they're the best team in this conference, and I don't like them in this game either, because this is a neutral site, so they're all playing in D.C. at Care First Arena, whichever arena that is. Drexel already played here yesterday, so Drexel has a game under their belt. It was an easy win, so they didn't really have to exert themselves that much. Once they got into the big lead, they could kind of start taking it easy a little bit, get ready for the next game, so that's all good for them. They're used to the venue. Towson hasn't played for over a week, and they ended the season on a 3-game win streak, I think, or something like that. So Towson, they were on a huge win streak prior to that. They had one of the longest win streaks of the season, so people actually think that they're good, but I mean, they're good, but they're not that good. As Ken Palm will tell you, Drexel is not that much worse than they are. Both of these teams actually like to play slow, I believe, and they both play defense. So I think that's what you're going to get here. The two teams match up they're pretty similar. It's just that Towson is slightly better than Drexel, but I think this line is definitely too high, and plus the spot on top of that I think favors Drexel. So I think you have some things going for you. I would take the points with Drexel, but the market, for some reason, looks to disagree with that. But again, Towson, coming into this, that extra time off that they've had could make them a little bit rusty. I mean, they're going to have a target on their back because they're the 1 seed. And again, Drexel got that game out of the way yesterday, so they have a game under their belt already. You can also tell this is very defensive because Drexel and Towson, I mean, this total's down from 123.5 to 123, a ridiculously low total. So we're expecting slow pace, we're expecting defense. And when it's a game like that, it also makes sense to take the points because the points are worth more when the total is that low. So again, that's my strongest lean in this Colonial slate here. I would take the points with Drexel. Delaware also played yesterday, and I leaned to them yesterday. That was one of my leans that was actually correct. I felt like I went like maybe 50-50 yesterday at best, which wasn't that great with all of my leans. But I just give out leans because I talk about them. But obviously, if I have a stronger lean, I'll tell you. Like I think Drexel is a stronger one, and obviously my plays are what I feel are the strongest. Delaware won yesterday against who did they beat? Campbell, I think. Yeah, so Campbell was entering the fray, lost, and now Delaware has actually won 2 games in a row. I liked Delaware yesterday because they had suffered a scare against Stony Brook, who's really, really bad. Delaware almost wound up blowing the game against them. So Delaware got that escape and had that one game out of the way. So I liked Delaware yesterday. Not sure that I like them as much in this game, even though William and Mary is coming into this game after having a long layoff. All 4 of the top 4 seeds have all had a long layoff here. This, I believe, William and Mary, I believe, is the 4 seed, and Delaware is the 5, I think. Delaware isn't the 5, right? Delaware is, Campbell must have been the 5. So, yeah, because Delaware played in the previous round, so I think Delaware is probably like the 8. Or no, 8 was, I don't even know. 8 was Drexel and whatever. Delaware, they might be, who even knows, man? Whatever, you can go find it. Whatever seed they are, 7, who knows? William and Mary, up from 2 to 3.5 with juice, though. And even though I don't think this William and Mary team is that good, Delaware now having to play a 3rd game in a row. I mean, you could start tiring out a little bit once you played multiple games in a row like this and you're up against a team that is rested. Even if the rest, I think with Towson, it might turn to rust a little bit. With William and Mary, I don't remember how they ended the season, but with Delaware having played multiple games, whereas Drexel's only played 1, I think it's a little bit more difficult to look Delaware's way here. 74% of tickets, 89% of the cash. The money is coming in on William and Mary. I don't really disagree with it, but I don't really have a strong feel there. UNC Wilmington is the number 2 seed, I believe, but I think they're the best team in the conference. They're up from 7.5 to 8. So odds makers are kind of giving you some indication there as their line is a pretty big favorite. Hampton won yesterday in like a pick'em lined game against Northeastern. I didn't think Hampton was going to win that game, and they did. Hampton actually has the money coming in on them as they have, I think they might have 2 games played already as well. I think they might be playing a 3rd straight game as well. So in a case like that, I don't really know that I would want to try to grab the points with Hampton as you have a rested Wilmington team who's the better team. And as long as they shake off the rust quickly enough, I think they should be good to go in this game. But the market seems to be coming in with, like I said, 68% of the cash on Hampton, 54% of the tickets on Wilmington. Wilmington has been driven up from 7.5 to 8 with juice, though. So some conflicting indicators there. Wilmington was my pick to win this conference, because I think Towson is just overrated. I think William and Mary is overrated. I think the 2 best teams are Wilmington and Charleston. We will see what happens here. And then Charleston is, of course, entering as well. They're heavily public with 88% of tickets and only 85% of the cash. They are up from 6.5 to 8 with juice, though, up against Monmouth, who played yesterday and won. I think Monmouth hadn't played yet in the tournament until yesterday, so I think they've only played 1 game. So maybe they have a little bit more of an advantage over these couple of teams that I think have played multiple games in the tournament so far. And these tournaments are all chaos, man. But again, I think Drexel would be the strongest way to lean in this entire conference. Charleston, again, a couple conflicting indicators here as they're public with less of the cash on them. So wouldn't really want to lay the points here, but they're going to have a target on their back because they've won this conference multiple years in a row. I think they're not quite as good as they were those last couple of years, but I do think they're good enough to win against Monmouth. I mean, whether or not they're going to cover, I don't know. But the setup of this is kind of lame, too, because Charleston is the 3 seed, I think, and Wilmington is the 2. So that means, even though I think they're probably the 2 best teams in this conference, if they match up against each other, it's going to be before the final. So you're going to get one of these like worst teams getting into the final up against whoever wins, probably between Charleston and Wilmington. And then whichever team wins that is going to be a little bit beat up, so that kind of sucks. Missouri Valley, we will have another automatic bid being decided at 2:10 p.m. Eastern here with Bradley and Drake in the Missouri Valley final here. Drake up from 2-4 now, so the line is moving up on Drake. 74% of tickets, 81% of the cash on Drake. Both these teams actually kind of struggled yesterday. Drake was losing their game early against, who did Drake play? I forget, but Bradley's struggle was worse because it was against Valpo with All Right there on Valpo. Bradley was not All Right, and Bradley did not get the cover from me, although part of the reason was that Bradley, who's usually a really good free throw shooting team, they shoot like 78% from the line as a team, which is one of the better rates in all of college basketball. They really were bad yesterday. They were like 55, 56% from the line yesterday. Very strange for a Bradley team to do that. And they had almost 30 free throw attempts, I think, in the game, somewhere in the high 20s, and they missed almost half of them. So that's basically, it comes down to that's pretty much why they didn't cover, which really sucks. But Drake, again, they struggled as well yesterday, and they wound up getting the win. But I'm pretty sure they were like losing early on against, they played some more competitive team, though. Who did they play? I don't even remember. It was Belmont, yeah. Belmont, I think, was beating Drake early on, and Drake turned around and won. So both of these teams had kind of similar games yesterday, but Bradley did it against kind of a worse team, which is going to make Bradley look a little bit worse. But I think we all know Drake is the better of these two teams. I think they might be better by more than what this line indicates. Bradley, I've been telling you, Bradley, a little bit overrated. KenPom has them pretty high in the luck index. So I do agree with Drake. I do agree with this line move here. Even though Drake, they're going to have a target on their back because they keep winning this conference. They've won it 2 years in a row, I think. And now they have the new coach there, which I think I called him McDermott yesterday. His name is actually McCollum. I was thinking of like Creighton back in the day. I guess McCollum is the coach with Drake, who had a major like winning pedigree in Division II. He's the guy at Drake now. He's really done a good job coming in right away, first year there. And again, like I said, both of these teams are going to have a lot of fans showing up. They both travel really well. It's a shorter trip for Bradley, I think, but Drake's not that far away either, up somewhere in Iowa. So you're going to see big amounts of the fan base from both teams, especially for the final here. So I think those fans are going to kind of negate each other in the game, and we will see what happens, man. But a little bit of a lean to Drake. I mean, I think Drake got a little bit more battle-tested in this tournament. Bradley avoided Northern Iowa. Drake, the slightly better team, so that's the way I look. We got the SoCon semifinals here, and I don't know when their final is going to be. I don't know if they have any days off after this, but some of the best teams in this conference have already dropped out, with Samford and UNC Greensboro both being gone, and I think they're two of the top three. They're at least two of the top four teams here, and the other two are playing each other here in Furman and Chattanooga, which is kind of a shitty setup again, because I think this is going to be a battle, and then the winner of this game is going to play probably Wofford, and Wofford's going to have had a cakewalk into the final, so Wofford is probably going to come into the final more well-rested. So, and by the way, I should mention, Drake played the earlier game yesterday than Bradley, so Bradley had to play later at night, so Drake has a little bit of extra rest on this quick turnaround time there, so a little bit of an extra advantage to Drake there. Furman and Chattanooga, these are two of the top four teams in the conference. Like I said, Samford and UNC Greensboro both got knocked out. Samford got knocked out by Furman, but we knew that was going to be a competitive game. Furman is also a pretty good team. Chattanooga, I think coming into this tournament, they were the best team in this conference. I still think they are, but they're down from 3.5 to 2.5 here. This is a competitive conference, man, among the top four. I told you this is going to be a pretty competitive conference tournament. Chattanooga down from 3.5 to 2.5, 61% of tickets on them, 74% of the cash coming in on Furman. So the money, big market indicators on Furman here. I don't see a strong reason why that would be the case, but I don't really see any strong reason to lean to Chattanooga either here. As like I said, Furman is coming off a big win, a very satisfying win over Samford, who won this conference tournament last year, and were the best team in the conference last year. Samford, pretty good team, and I I forget what I was gonna. What was I gonna say? So that was a big win for Furman, man. Very satisfying win. Although it's not like you're gonna have a letdown in the middle of a tournament, but that makes them look good. Whereas Chattanooga, I think, had a much easier game yesterday. They beat Mercer, pretty easy win, showing Mercer no mercy there. So I don't really understand the move here. Like, if you're looking at basically just what these teams did in their prior game in the tournament, you're looking at Furman having like a much more difficult game against Samford, even though they won fairly easily. That is a bigger win. It's a win that looks better than Chattanooga's. So I'm not really sure that I would agree with that line move there. Furman, I mean, looking at the regular season, Furman lost at Chattanooga by double digits. Actually, they got season swept, so Chattanooga actually beat them both times. Furman was winning the entire game at home, though. But they did shoot 43.5% from three. So that's a little bit of an outlier. Chattanooga out-rebounded them, even at Furman, even though Furman was winning this entire game. Seems like it maybe was just because Furman was just raining down threes and just happening to hit them, which may not be the case this time. And then, of course, like I said, Chattanooga beat them. Almost wire-to-wire win here at home for Chattanooga. Chattanooga really took care of the ball. They were the team that shot really ridiculously from three in that one, though, but they won the rebound battle again. So I don't really see a real reason, like matchup-wise, like why we would look at those two games and think that they're like that misleading or anything like that. So, yeah, again, I don't really see much of a reason to lean to Furman in this one. I would probably slightly lean against that, except that the market read looks so strong on Furman that maybe I would have to second guess myself here. And Furman, yeah, each of these teams has only played one game in the tournament, so there's no like extra rest advantage or anything like that. Ryan, what's up, man? Thanks for hanging out. All right. I don't know what you mean by that, by the way. Chama. I'm a chama. Is that how we pronounce it in Boston? Yeah, man. I charm the ladies, the women in Boston, all the retarded women in Boston. All right. What else we got? VMI and Wofford. That's right. The other game in this SoCon, man. VMI coming from out of nowhere. I think they did make the conference final in this tournament a couple years back. If I remember, they made like an unexpected run, but they're actually having a little bit of a turnaround this season. Doing definitely better than they have done in most years past. Wofford is still the way better team, though, and they're a 9.5-point favorite, 59% of tickets, 70% of the cash coming in on them. VMI pulled off an upset of UNC Greensboro, which was just kind of ridiculous. It was like a 10-point upset or something like that yesterday. So VMI coming off of that, and I think VMI played the day before that, too. So VMI, I think, is playing a third game in this conference, and Wofford, I think, is only playing their second. Yeah, they beat Citadel. That was an easy win for them, so not a whole lot of exertion, but they are still playing a third game in 3 days, whereas Wofford, I believe, is only playing their second game. They beat East Tennessee yesterday, which is not an easy matchup against East Tennessee, but still, VMI pulling off a double-digit upset. You got to think this is where the road ends for VMI, running into another team. It's almost a double-digit favorite against them in Wofford. I think Wofford probably gets it done here. I think VMI probably won't be able to continue doing what they did yesterday. They won't be able to keep that up 2 games in a row, or really kind of 3 games in a row in this case, but pull off 2 straight giant upsets. I know it's been done before. We see it happen in these crazy tournaments, like with NC State last year beating, Duke and North Carolina or something in that tournament. But yeah, I would lean to Wofford in this one. Then we got and these games all neutral site, by the way. Asheville, North Carolina for that tournament. The one in the Missouri Valleys in St. Louis. Just figured I would call that out just so we know what's going on here. By the way, one other thing I forgot to mention is I did get a win last night on one of my other wins last night was Detroit Pistons, and they should have won the game outright, man. The Pistons had a close game against the Warriors the whole way. Pistons were winning that game by 1 with like 40 seconds left, and they wound up losing and then almost not covering on free throws, but they still covered. So at least I did get that game right, but I think I was more right than even what the final score looked like. I thought I was going to get the money line cash on the Pistons in that one. All right, the Sun Belt continues in Pensacola, Florida. We're down to the semifinals here. We actually have the top 4 seeds are all still alive in this one, which of course not that surprising when what the Sun Belt does here is the top two teams haven't even played yet. The top two teams have had byes into this round, and then the other two teams played already and had byes into the previous round. So makes it a little bit easier. The Sun Belt changed their format this year to give more of an advantage to the top seed. So it's similar to the WCC structure, which I kind of like because I do think those teams, like, you shouldn't throw out how good a team has been during the regular season, man. Like, they shouldn't just have one loss in a conference tournament and have that determine everything. So it's kind of ridiculous. So Arkansas State, actually the 4 seed against South Alabama, the 1 seed. And yet Arkansas State is a 5-point favorite here. So the odds makers are telling you Arkansas State is actually the better team. I agree with that. They're down a little bit from 5-5 with reduced juice, but they got 74% of the cash coming in on them, 62% of tickets on South Alabama. So South Alabama's public. I mean, the public's going to look at this and think, wait a minute. I have the 1 seed against the 4. They're getting points, and South Alabama beat Arkansas State both times they played them this year. So why would anybody in their right mind lay points with Arkansas State here? Well, I will tell you that I think those games in the regular season, I think, were at least a little bit misleading. I think South Alabama in one of the games had absolutely outrageous shooting percentages in one of them, shooting like between 50 and 60% from three-point range in one of them. And in the other game, Arkansas State, I believe, just had a ridiculously low shooting percentage. So we did have some outliers in those games. So I would agree with the market here with Arkansas State. It just looks way too easy to take the points with South Alabama. It looks like the books are almost handing you free money here, and obviously they're not doing that. Another advantage Arkansas State has is that they played yesterday, and they actually had a scare against Marshall yesterday. They escaped against Marshall yesterday, so that's good. So Arkansas State got to play a game yesterday, get those nerves out of the way. You play a game in the tournament already. You get used to the venue. And Arkansas State was like a 7.5-point favorite in that game, and they almost lost the game. So that is also going to give them a little bit of focus coming into this game too, whereas South Alabama has been off for a long time. So in a way, that's a little bit of a disadvantage maybe. And they did end the season pretty hot with 5 wins in their last 6 games, so kind of on a roll there, and they haven't played since then. So Arkansas State does have some advantages here. I do agree with the market read there. I would lean to that side. Arkansas State likes to play fast as well, so I think there is going to be a bit of a pacing collision here because I do think South Alabama plays slow. They do. They play very, very slow. So again, we will see what happens. You got kind of a stereotypical contrast matchup here with Arkansas State being the better offense and the faster team. South Alabama is the better defense and the slower team. And I know usually I like to look to the better defense getting points. In this case, I don't really think so. And then in the other game, we also have a pretty big market disparity here with Troy and JMU. Troy actually laying points against JMU, so the 3 seed laying points against the 2 seed. So the odds makers are telling you Troy is slightly better than James Madison. Troy down from 2.5 to 1.5 with juice, but 69% of the cash on them, 71% of tickets on JMU. I think the public is going to come in on JMU. I mean, they won this conference tournament last year. I mean, they're the more known name. Nobody knows who the hell Troy is. Troy is in Troy, Alabama, by the way. So they're actually closer to this venue than James Madison is. So maybe a little bit of a geographic advantage there, although, of course, South Alabama has a geographic advantage in this tournament, but I still like Arkansas State there. Troy, just like Arkansas State, they played yesterday. They won easily, though, against, I think they finally ended that ridiculous run by Old Dominion, who was playing, I think, a 4th straight day or something like that with this ridiculous setup, and Troy finally ended them. Troy was a double-digit favorite in that game. They had an easy win. So I think that's good for Troy as well because they got a game out of the way. They got a game in the tournament under their belt, and they didn't have to really put in a huge effort to do so. So I think you got the advantage for Troy there. Troy is a pretty good defensive team, so that's what we're looking at here with them. James Madison, I think, also is, though. Let me see. No, excuse me, they're not. James Madison is a way better offensive team. What am I thinking? So, yeah, I was thinking that James Madison because they're a slow-paced team, but they're actually good offensively and not good at all defensively, and they're actually way high in KenPom's luck index at 44th in the country. So I like Troy in this game. Troy way down in Ken Palm's luck index, and they're the better defense, top 100 defense. So the best unit on the court is going to be Troy's defense, and both teams like to play slow, which I think is going to play more into Troy's defensive style. So I like Troy in that one. The Big Sky Conference continues with the top two teams in the conference, top two seeds, and I think I agree that they're the top two teams finally getting into action here with Northern Colorado, a huge favorite against Weber State. This is the second round, so I think the Big Sky, I think we're going to have 2 games in the second round today, and the other 2 games in the second round are going to be tomorrow or something like that. I don't even know. How does it work? Or were those the games yesterday? Maybe those are the games yesterday. I don't know. I don't know how this tournament is structured, but Weber State, no, because Weber State played yesterday. They got a win. Yeah, Weber State and Northern Arizona both played yesterday. So, yeah, both of those teams do have a game out of the way, like a game under their belt. So they are used to, again, this venue. This is a neutral site as well in Boise, Idaho. Both of those teams won games yesterday against some of the lesser teams in the conference, but they're also lesser teams in the conference, and now they're running into teams that are better than they are. This Weber State, Northern Colorado, I like Northern Colorado in this one, but this line is really getting away from us. They're up from 8.5 to 12 with juice. 84% of tickets, 85% of the cash on them. I don't think I'd want to lay 12 points. 8.5 was cheap, though, because what we're looking at here is Northern Colorado was like a 7-point favorite at Weber State in the final game of the regular season, and Weber State gave them some problems and covered the spread, but Northern Colorado, I think, had already clinched the 1 seed here, so they had nothing to play for. So that game looks like, Weber State can hang with Northern Colorado. We know Weber State is kind of a known name in this tournament, or in this conference, I should say, but I don't think so, because Northern Colorado just didn't really show up in that game, and they still won. And now they get this neutral site game. I think the line is a little bit too high. I think probably about 10 would be a fair line in this one, but that I would probably lay up to about 10 with Northern Colorado here if I was going to play the game. I don't really want to lay it at 12, but I do agree Northern Colorado should win this game by double digits. So that I lean to that side. And then again, Northern Arizona also beat some lesser team. Weber State beat Sacramento State. I think Northern Arizona, I don't even remember what team in this conference they beat yesterday. I don't really think it matters that much. They're up against Montana. Montana up from 3.5 to 6 with juice. Northern Arizona's made some noise in this tournament in recent years. Don't know that it's going to happen this time. And Montana is definitely a pretty good team in this conference. 84% of tickets, 98% of the cash. Again, very similar market read to the Northern Colorado one, where it looks like more of the cash is coming in on them and the line is moving up on them a bit. And it's to the point where maybe we're not getting that much value anymore there. Some would agree with the Montana side there. I don't think it's as strong as the Northern Colorado lean, but either way, I mean, you're looking at some big prices there, so I'm not going to try to do anything with that. The WCC continues, and we still are not getting the top 2 seeds getting involved yet, which are Gonzaga and St. Mary's. What else is new? The 3 and 4 are playing today, though. San Francisco and Santa Clara. Pepperdine pulled off a double-digit upset of Oregon State last night, so I would look to go against them here. I lean to Santa Clara. Santa Clara's coming into this game having not played since the end of the regular season, though. They're up from 14 to 16, but even though this is a bad spot for Pepperdine, and Pepperdine is really not a good team, and I really don't expect them to be able to I mean, I don't think they're going to win and pull off 2 double-digit upsets, and they're an awful team, but I do think this line is too high, as Santa Clara was only a 14.5-point favorite at home against Pepperdine. So I think on a neutral here, this is in Las Vegas at the Orleans. I think this line is a little bit too high, even though I would lean to the Santa Clara side. 60% of tickets, 64% of the cash. And again, it's up from 14.5 to 16. Take from that what you will. And then Washington State also played yesterday. They got a win over Loyola Marymount, I think, to advance here. So they're the last remaining of the Pac-12 teams here, but they're up against a better San Francisco team. San Francisco up from 4.5 to 5, 91% of tickets, 98% of the cash. I would be more hesitant to lean to San Francisco here, even though I think they should be able to get this done, but Washington State played yesterday. They got adjusted to this venue. Like I said yesterday, Washington State and Oregon State were at a little bit of a disadvantage because they'd never played in this particular tournament before, so they're not used to it. But now that Washington State got through it and they got that first win out of the way, I think they're going to be a little bit more settled in here, where San Francisco is playing their first game in the tournament, although, of course, they do play here every year. San Francisco also really has not been as good away from home this year. They've been really, really good at home. They did lose their final home game against Gonzaga, who was really good and I think underrated still. But San Francisco, yeah, they don't play as well away from home, man. So that's a little bit of a reason why San Francisco is probably going to drop out of this tournament at some point. And we'll see when that is. They're very, very public, definitely too public for my liking. I'm going to stay off of it. What I'm not going to stay off of, though, is this Summit League final where I would say we're going to have an automatic bid clincher, but that's part of the handicap here. We already have an automatic bid clincher, and that is UN Omaha here. I think they're going to be celebrating, man. Omaha, they're in the tournament for the first time in program history, and they don't even have to win this game to do it. So, yeah, I mean, you want to win the final and officially be the Summit League champions, but they're already in the tournament, man. And we've had this situation happen at least 2 times that I can remember recently. So what's going on here is that St. Thomas is still in transition period. This is their last year of transition period, which is stupid because they're obviously good enough and they've been in D1 for 3 years now or whatever. So they should be eligible for the tournament. They're not. So they're eligible for the lower like postseason tournaments that aren't NCAA affiliated, but they can't get into the tournament. So you might be asking, why am I going to play St. Thomas here? Minus 3.5, although the line's up to 4 with juice. 76% of tickets, 99% of the cash. So the money's coming in on St. Thomas. I am on that same side. So it's good to see the money agreeing with me. Yeah, I mean, I would still probably lay like around what it is now, 4 or whatever. Maybe start looking towards money line or something like that if you don't want to lay the points there. But St. Thomas, I think they have more reason to show up than Omaha does in this game. And this has been a situation where I don't remember if it went 2-0 against the spread or 1-1 against the spread, but Bellarmine was in this situation when they were in transition a few years ago. They got into the tournament final up against, I think, Jacksonville State maybe, and Jacksonville State had already clinched the auto bid, so they didn't really have that much of a motivator, that much of a reason to win the final. Bellarmine had more of a reason to do it, and they won that game and covered. And then the other time it happened that I remember was Merrimack not that long ago, which I think was against, I think it might have been against Fairleigh Dickinson, the year that Fairleigh Dickinson beat Purdue. I think it was. I'm not sure, though, and I think Merrimack won that final but didn't cover or something like that. I don't remember because I was on both of those sides, and I'm going to do it again here, and this is the reasoning why. Nebraska, Omaha. So basically what I've said so far is that I don't think either of these teams have as much to play for as you would in a normal championship game. Normal championship game in one of these conferences, the winner's going to get into the tournament and the other's going to go home. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's an easier thing to, put your that's an easier thing to wrap your mind around. But here, Omaha is already in the tournament, and I think it's even bigger for them because they've never been in the tournament before. So they got into it. Not only did they get into it, but they did it by winning yesterday in the semifinals and putting up 100 points in the game, and they absolutely annihilated South Dakota. So they looked really, really good yesterday in doing that. They're the 1 seed here. So again, I think the public is going to look at this and think, wait a minute. Omaha's the 1 seed. They're the better team. They put up 100 points yesterday, and I'm getting points with them. Yeah, give me Nebraska, Omaha here. And again, I don't agree with that line of thinking because when you're already in the big dance, you have less of a reason to win this game. And I think it gives the ineligible team more of a reason to win this game because for St. Thomas, this is the end of the road, man. This is it. They're not going to be in the NCAA tournament. And they have a chance to, shove it in people's faces and prove, yeah, we belong in the tournament. You should put us in the tournament. And to prove that you do belong in the tournament, even though you know you're not going to get in, you still got to win this game to prove that you could have been there, that you should be there. So that's a bigger motivator, if you understand what I'm saying. They need to prove, yeah, we should be in the tournament. And to do that, they got to win this game. So I think that's going to be a big motivator for them. They're going to be playing with the extra chip on their shoulder for that reason. And I believe if they do win this game, it's going to make them eligible to play in like the CIT or the CBI or whatever. So if they want to continue playing, I think this would be the way that they could do that as well. They won't be eligible for the NIT or the NCAA tournament, obviously, because those are the NCAA affiliated tournaments or sponsored tournaments or whatever you want to call it, the ones that the NCAA runs. And on top of all that, Nebraska Omaha, as I've been saying constantly, even though they've been looking really, really unstoppable in this tournament, they're an overrated team, man. St. Thomas, pretty good team, and I think they're actually a little bit underrated. And they've been really good in this conference for basically since they've moved up to Division I. They've immediately been good in this conference. Omaha has not been as good. They're not really used to being in a situation like this. St. Thomas is at least used to being one of the better teams in this conference. And St. Thomas had a game that didn't look as good yesterday, even though the final score looked good. They won by double digits. They covered for me. But that game was really kind of tenuous. It was close going into the second half against a pretty bad North Dakota team, whereas Nebraska Omaha was actually playing against a South Dakota team. It's actually better than North Dakota, and Omaha annihilated them. So Omaha's win and getting that 100 points, Omaha looks better than St. Thomas does. So, like, what better in their right mind is going to see all that and want to lay points with St. Thomas here? Well, I'm going to do it. As I said, Ken Baum will tell you that St. Thomas is the better team. Omaha is 42nd in his luck index, so he has them being pretty overrated. They're a mid-tempo team. They're actually really bad defensively. They're top 100 offense. Yeah, they can definitely score, but their defense is very bad, in the bottom 100 defensively, so that's not good. St. Thomas is the much more balanced team, and you want to talk about good offense? Well, St. Thomas is ranked 63rd in the country according to Ken Baum, so they're actually better than Omaha is, and they're actually, even though they're bad defensively, they're actually better than Omaha, and they also play mid-tempo style, and they're a little bit further down in the luck index than Omaha is. So basically, St. Thomas is like a similar team, but they're just better at everything than Omaha is. So they are the better team, and I believe Ken Baum has them winning this game by about 3 or maybe 4. So we'll lay the points with St. Thomas for all those reasons. I was pretty excited when that spot came up, so don't let me down, baby. First half of Lakers-Celtics. Final was Celtics won 111-101. I think the Celtics won by 10. The Celtics had a 20-point lead at the end of the third quarter. They completely dominated the third quarter, and then I think they I think they took their foot off the gas a little bit, but they still won by 10 points. All right. So Celtics basically dominated the second half. They really dominated the third quarter. And then is that it? No, that's not it. I was gonna say there's more. Holy crap! There are so many games today, man. Look at all these conference tournaments. I'm gonna be here for forever. And I still have to talk about hockey. I have to talk about regular season college basketball, which there isn't that much left. But I have 2 plays over there. All right, what do we got next? Let's keep going. We got another final. So we're going to get another bid clinched here in Johnson City, Tennessee, in this neutral site in the Big South. Winthrop and High Point. High Point up from 5.5 to 7.5. 70% of tickets on High Point, but 93% of the cash coming in on Winthrop. So the cash is coming in on Winthrop, but High Point has moved up from 5.5 to 7.5. So I think once it got past the 7, I think now there's all this buyback coming in on Winthrop. But High Point, they did not look very good yesterday, man. Winthrop looked really good. Winthrop blew out UNC Asheville yesterday. Absolutely trashed UNC Asheville. So Asheville's like a known quantity. So I think I would think that the public would look at this and think that Winthrop's win is way more impressive yesterday. Which it is. They crushed Asheville, which is a team that people kind of know their name, whereas High Point almost lost to an inferior team yesterday. They almost got upset by, who was it? I think it didn't even go into overtime. I'm not sure, but they lost to, or almost lost to, I don't even remember what team it was. It was some team in the Big South that's definitely not as good. Let me just see. How do I not remember anything anymore, man? I'm sorry. My mind is just dead now. Let me see. High Point, they were a big favorite yesterday against Radford. Actually, people do know the name Radford. Radford's a little bit overrated. High Point escaped. That was in regulation. I mean, there were a couple of kind of strange calls towards the end there where High Point got screwed on a call where I thought they got the tie up, which was going to give them the ball with the possession arrow, and the refs said that the tie up didn't happen, so that it was actually a shot clock violation on High Point, even though it was like a scrum for the ball. Didn't make sense. Then High Point wound up on an inbound play, having to inbound it, I think with the lead, but still by 1 point or something, and Winthrop was going to have to intentionally foul, but they tried to trap the guy, and I think he probably traveled. Then Winthrop fouled him, and they didn't call the travel. They called the foul. So I think kind of calls that cancel each other out. What can you do? I think because High Point got that scare yesterday, and High Point did play the earlier game yesterday, that I would still lean to High Point in this game, and I'm kind of hoping they do it because they have a fun offense that would be kind of fun to see in the tournament, and I think they should have been in the tournament last year. They've been the best team in this conference 2 years in a row now. This is up in less than an hour now on ESPN2. So hopefully it gets done. And High Point is also a team that's never been to the tournament before. So if they win, we could have the first 3 teams that clinch bids in the tournament could be first-time tournament teams, which is pretty exciting. I like that. So that is my rooting interest in this game, and I kind of do lean that way just because they played the earlier game yesterday and they had a really close call and escaped, and I think that might cause them to focus more because they were actually winning that game by a decent margin, and then they almost let it slip away. Whereas Winthrop didn't suffer, like they didn't face any adversity in their game yesterday. They just ran away with it, and it was against a better team. So I don't really agree with the cash percentage there. It would be High Point or pass for me in that game. But for my rooting interest is hopefully they win the game. Semifinals in the Patriot League, Bucknell sitting in a 5-point favorite, down to 5.5 with reduced juice. 59% of tickets, 77% of the cash coming in on Navy. So the money looks like it's coming in a little bit on Navy. I don't know about that. In this league, the higher seed is hosting. So Bucknell is, I believe, the 1 seed up against, I don't know if Navy is the 4. Maybe they are 4 or 5, whatever they are. So this is at Bucknell, but the money looks like it is coming in on Navy, and I'm not really sure that I agree with that. Sure, Bucknell, I mean, they're kind of a name that's like a staple in this conference. I do think they're the best team in this conference. Wouldn't shock me if they lose. I mean, this whole conference is pretty bad this year. But, I mean, I kind of expect them to win, but the money is coming in against them and on Navy. I don't know. I mean, I haven't really been that impressed with what I've seen out of Navy, though, so I don't know, man. Bucknell is the better team, but the odds makers are telling you it's not by that much, but they do get the home court advantage factored in. I would lean towards Colgate in this other game, which is the 3-2 matchup here. Both teams still alive here. The 1, 2, and 3 all still alive here. And if Navy's the 4, they're still alive as well. American, I don't think they are, though. Actually, I don't think Navy is. I'm thinking of Army. I think Army was probably the 4. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Navy, really kind of the lesser of all the teams left here. American, I've been saying I think they're a little bit overrated. So they're at the point where they're not even getting full home court advantage here, even though they are at home. This game's going to be in Philadelphia. But Colgate, I believe, is also, are they in Pennsylvania or are they in New York? I forget where Colgate is, but it's not a whole lot of travel for them. American up from 2 to 2.5 with juice, 71% of tickets, 80% of the cash. Money coming in on American. I'm not sure that I agree with that, though. Colgate, I know they're going to have name recognition because they constantly have won this conference recently, so the name recognition is there. Public might be tempted to just grab the points with Colgate just because it's the name, but I do think American has been overrated this year. So them being the higher seed, it almost kind of looks tempting to lay the points with American, in my opinion, so I don't know. Colgate, I think, is a slightly better team, though. And then we have another final here at 2 p.m., which is going to be hosted by the higher seed, which is Lipscomb in the Atlantic Sun final. Lipscomb against North Alabama. And odds makers are telling you this is a pretty close matchup. As even factoring in home court, Lipscomb is down from 5.5 to 5 with juice. 50% of tickets, 59% of the cash coming in on North Alabama. Yeah, I mean, the money is coming in on North Alabama. I don't know that I would necessarily disagree with that, but Lipscomb's coming off a close call, man. They almost lost in the semifinals as a 9.5 point favorite, I think, at home against Queens. They got taken into overtime, I believe, by Queens. So I think that is going to refocus Lipscomb coming into this and maybe have them a little bit undervalued. So that still might have me leaning their way a little bit, whereas I think North Alabama had kind of a pretty big win at home against Jacksonville, and everybody was going crazy. North Alabama was able to put that thing away earlier, so they looked like the better team than Lipscomb in the previous round. So maybe that would wind up giving us a little bit of value on Lipscomb. But the money looks like it is coming in against them. I hate the name Lipscomb. Lipscomb. Clean your lips, boy. Lipscomb, they play a slow pace. They're pretty balanced, pretty good. 75th in offensive efficiency, just out of the top 100 defensive efficiency, and a little bit underrated. North Alabama, the slightly worse team, about 20 ranking spots lower in Ken Palm's rankings. He has them also very good offensively, two really efficient offenses, but he's got Lipscomb is a significantly better defense than North Alabama. Both teams play somewhat slow. Lipscomb plays a little bit slower than what North Alabama wants to play. North Alabama is higher in the Ken Palm luck index, so he's telling you they're a little bit more lucky. So taking all that into account, I would actually still lean to the Lipscomb side. I think the looking at the Ken Palm metrics, the analytics there, and the situation based on what happened in the last round, still slightly to Lipscomb, but the money is coming in against it. So I'm not going to try to do it, but that is that's everything there. North Alabama, by the way, if they win, they would be yet another team making the tournament for the first time in program history. So that would be fairly exciting, though. And their crowd at home has been crazy, and I think their crowd is probably going to show up in Lipscomb because they're only having to go up from North Alabama up to Nashville. So they're basically like a few hours up the road. So they're going to travel up there. We'll see what happens in that game, man. And then the Southland Conference, I don't know how this conference tournament is structured, man. I think some of the bottom teams don't get in. I think like the bottom 3 don't get in. Probably the top 10 or so get in. But I don't understand how this thing is arranged because Texas A&M CC and Southeastern Louisiana, I think, are the 3 and 4 seeds in this tournament. So I don't really know what's going on. I think they're playing this like what I think is like the 7 and the 8 here with Houston Christian and Incarnate Word. So I really have no idea. Texas A&M CC, and this is all neutral site, by the way, in Lake Charles, Louisiana, which is where the Southland plays their conference tournament. Neutral site. Texas A&M CC is a 6.5 point favorite, 60% of tickets, but money coming in on Houston Christian, 69% of the cash coming in on them. So market read on taking the points with Houston Christian. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, I feel like they're almost going to be kind of a fish out of water here, whereas A&M CC, I mean, they're the team that has more of a pedigree in this tournament, but then again, they're also the team that people know the name more so they're going to be more tempted to lay the points with them. So I don't know. And then Incarnate Word, really not that great a team, but Southeastern Louisiana, who's had a pretty decent season, up from 3 with juice at 3.5, but public, 67% of the tickets and only 53% of the cash on Southeastern Louisiana. So I don't know what I think about this one either, man. Market read would have you taking the points in both of these games with the inferior teams, Incarnate Word. But again, they're not really used to being in a situation like this either. And it's Southeastern Louisiana is the team with more pedigree in this tournament as well. So I don't know that I agree with those market reads there, but I just don't know what I would do with those games. So that is all the conference tournament games. Should I do what I did yesterday and go run and get some water real quick? Let me do it. We're gonna go to another intermission here, man. I will be back in 1 second here. Give me a second. All right. I would say thanks for bearing with me, but nobody's here. So, all right, let's get back to it here. We're going to talk about the regular season. I do have 2 plays in the regular season conference basketball here. Let's get it back up. Let's do it. All right. Michigan and Michigan State is probably the biggest game up. That's up in less than an hour. Number 17, Michigan. Number 8, Michigan State on CBS at noon. This game, Michigan State, decently sized favorite at home. Decent sized favorite, I should say. Up from 7 to 8. 59% of tickets, 64% of the cash on Michigan State. The money coming in on Michigan State. This is a revenge spot for Michigan. It's a big game. Both teams are going to want to win this game, even though Michigan State has already clinched the Big Ten regular season title and the 1 seed in the tournament. I think that's it. They're up 2 games now over Michigan, who is right behind them. But does that mean neither of these teams does that mean Michigan State doesn't have anything to play for? No, I don't think so. This is senior night, senior day for Michigan State. It's a big rivalry. Both teams are going to show up here, but Michigan's coming off a pretty tough game against Maryland, remember. I thought that they would be able to win the game, and they lost right near the end. So they're playing 2 ranked teams in a row. Not the easiest spot for them. And then Michigan State, they're coming off a much easier opponent in Iowa, and it was a game that they almost lost. I was on Iowa in that game. I thought it was a sandwich spot. Iowa pushed the +7 for me in that one. Iowa probably should have been in that game, man. It was just ridiculous. I'll talk about Iowa more in a little bit, but some kind of unacceptable coaching decisions there in that Iowa game, in my opinion. Just really, really bad. Maybe just because I'm biased because I lost money on that. But Michigan State, yeah, I think they're probably in a little bit of the better spot here situationally, just because they're coming off kind of a scare against an inferior team. Coming back home here in on senior night, whereas Michigan coming off that more difficult game. It is revenge for Michigan because Michigan State did beat them not that long ago by 13 at Michigan. But I do think Michigan State does have some matchup advantages. Michigan does hit threes, and Michigan State very good at defending the 3. Michigan State, they crowd the paint so much that they allow a lot of 3-point attempts, but they also don't allow a high 3-point percentage. So all around, their defense is quite good as far as that's concerned. So slightly into Michigan State in this game. They are the better of the 2 teams. Ken Bum's got them as a top 10 team, top 5 in defense. So pretty good. And he's got Michigan down outside of his top 25 now, but also a good defensive team. They play fast. Michigan State, mid-tempo, is probably going to try to slow the game down a bit, I would imagine. Total is starting to drop from 147 to 146.5, juice to the over. 67% of tickets on the over, but 86% of the cash on the under. So because of all that I just said, it's a defensive matchup here, potentially. I think the defenses match up decently in this game. I would agree with the market read as far as the under is concerned. I would look to the under in this game as well. That and leaning towards the Michigan State side there. So that's the way that I look at that game. Let's keep going. Before we don't have enough time left, man. It's a good thing I already talked about all these conference games. Iowa, Nebraska. Let's get another play in there. Nebraska -7.5. I'm going to lay the points with Nebraska. They're up from 6.5 to 7.5 with juice. I know, unfortunately, I did not get to it when it was 7 or less. But I like the Nebraska side here, even though Iowa is 52% of the tickets, 60% of the cash coming in on them. So it looks like some of the money is coming in on them at that bigger number, driving the line down. Maybe the line will come down a little bit. I don't know that we're going to get back to 7 on this, though. But Iowa, technically they're still in this thing. Technically they still need to win. I think they probably have a tiebreaker against at least one of these teams. So I think maybe if they win, they're going to be able to avoid not making the Big Ten tournament because the bottom 3 teams don't make the Big Ten tournament. And I think Penn State and definitely Washington are already out of it. Iowa, I think, is almost out of it. So that is one reason why they might show up here. But Iowa just had that game against Michigan State, man. The one I was just talking about. Look at this game. Iowa was winning this whole game. They absolutely should have covered this game for me. And then they just fell completely apart later in the game. And not only that, but I think McCaffrey started benching his starters. It just made no sense, man. He started pulling some of these better players. I don't know what he was doing in this game. I think he should be fired. This has been a horrible, horrible season for Iowa. yeah, they're going to want to try to get into the Big Ten tournament, but I think Nebraska has more motivation here, man, because Nebraska, I don't think they could fall out of it completely, but they are only one game ahead of Iowa here. And Nebraska, I mean, they're in this weird situation where it's almost like they could become one of the bottom seeds in this conference tournament, but they also at the same time are trying to potentially get into the NCAA tournament as they're still a bubble team. Because this bubble, the bubble is kind of a small list of teams, and they're just kind of shuffling around, and Nebraska's on the wrong side of it right now. And I know Nebraska did just play that barn burner, really tough game. They lost to Ohio State, another loss of mine where Ohio State didn't cover for me, and I think they should have. But, I mean, I don't think Nebraska's going to let, fatigue come into play here. I mean, that was earlier this week. They've had days off. They're back at home now, and they're certainly better at home than on the road. They lost their last home game to Minnesota. I mean, come on, man. I know they've had bad bouts at home this year, but eventually at some points they've turned it around at home, and I think this is the spot, man. I mean, this is senior night. They're playing to try to keep their tournament hopes alive. Nebraska, I think 4 of their top 5 players are all seniors, so it is a big senior night. A lot of times, senior night, yeah, I mean, it means something, but I think it means more to Nebraska than most teams because many of these guys, it's going to be their last time playing on this floor, and these guys have been on the team for quite a while. So it is more meaningful to Nebraska. They've lost 4 games in a row, 2 on the road, 2 on this floor. They played Michigan really tough. I think probably should have won that game. They played Maryland tough here as well, but of course we're asking them to lay points here. But then Iowa's a really, really bad defensive team, man. I mean, Nebraska, they're the better defense. They are going to try to slow it down with Iowa being a very fast-paced team, but Nebraska's actually good on both sides of the floor. Pretty good offensively and defensively, a good balanced team, whereas Iowa, they're good on offense, but their defense is horrific. And Iowa away from home really has not been that good, man. They lost only by 2 to Michigan, so that was a pretty good away loss. But other than that, look at their other conference away games. They lost by 31 at Wisconsin, 10 at USC, 24 at UCLA, 17 at Ohio State. They beat Rutgers. That was their only road win this year in conference. They lost by 26 at Maryland, 20 at Illinois, and then 11 at Northwestern. So they've lost all but 2 conference road games by double digits. And the only team that they beat on the road was Rutgers, who's not a very good team, to put it mildly. Even though they do have 2 great star players, they're just not a good team at all, man. So Iowa has not done well on the road. They're coming off what I really kind of took as their last gasp. I can't believe they started taking guys out and they just kind of threw in the towel there when they could have beaten Michigan State, the top team in the conference and one of the top teams in basketball. So I just think they're going to be in a hangover spot. Nebraska, I mean, I don't think you have a hangover spot when it's a huge motivational spot for all the reasons I just laid out. For them, it's more of a matter of, are they going to be tired? And I think Iowa's game was more recently than Nebraska's was, right? Or was that on the same night? Let me see. Both teams put in a big effort. And this was March 6th, which was 3 days ago. So when was that? So that was, what, Thursday or something like that? So I think Iowa played more recently, too. So I think Nebraska actually has more time off than they do. Let me see. Oh, I brought it up in the wrong window. Man, this is a long video. I apologize. My videos are all long, but I talk about this forever, give out all that information. Yeah, so Nebraska has 2 extra days off. So I think that kind of negates the fact that game went into double overtime. And I think all the motivational aspects of that negate, of this game, negate how big a spot that was against Ohio State as well. So, yes, a couple of big games in a row for Nebraska there. That's true. All right, what else do we have on the regular season slate here that I even want to talk about? There's not a whole lot going on here that I care about that much, man. Let's just talk about my other play, and then we'll switch over because none of these other games are that great. Minnesota, Rutgers. It is senior night for Rutgers. They don't have a whole lot of seniors. Their best players, Ace Bailey and who's their other guy they have? I keep forgetting these guys' names now. Ace Bailey and I forget the other guy's name. Those 2 guys that are going to be really high draft picks. They're both freshmen. So I don't know. Might not be that much of a senior night for them. They're down from 5.5 to 5 with juice, 72% of tickets and cash on Rutgers. So Rutgers is public. Minnesota's coming off a tough game, though, against Wisconsin. Or Minnesota was kind of in that game against Wisconsin. Rutgers, I think, is coming off some pretty ugly loss. So I think Rutgers, it's still being their final home game. Yeah, coming off a bad loss by almost 30 to Purdue. I mean, it's not a bad loss because Purdue's good, but you lose by 30 to anybody, you're going to want to try to turn it around. So situationally, I think it does actually make more sense to look Rutgers' way in this one. Although Minnesota's played pretty well against the bottom teams in this conference, and Rutgers is one of those. And I haven't seen you in a while. What's up? Thank you. Heart sign back at you as well. All right, let's get to my last play here, which is Charlotte on the money line, minus 105. Why am I doing this? Why am I subjecting myself to this? Charlotte, yeah, they're a horrific team. I know this. I think we all know this, but look at the market read here, man. I think I got a cheap price on this too. So if you want to play this, I would still play the money line. I mean, you can still get it at minus 115 or whatever right now. Maybe minus 110. Charlotte has gone from a 1-point dog through the pick'em, starting to become a favorite here. 73% of the cash on them, 60% of tickets on UTSA. So it looks like kind of a pros versus Joes situation in this awful American Athletic Conference game here between two of the worst teams in the conference. Who is going to want to play this? Well, I do, because I think I see a situation here, and I think the market is indicating that it agrees with me on this. So I think there are people, professional bettors, who are agreeing with me on this, and this mostly has to do with what did UTSA do in their last game. Well, they just played Memphis on their senior night. It was UTSA's senior night, their final home game. 8.5-point underdog. Memphis, I mean, they're going to win this conference. The rest of this conference sucks. I would laugh, though. It would be hysterical if a different team wins this conference, but then that would be a bid steal because Memphis is going to get into the tournament even if they don't win this conference, even though I think they're definitely overrated. UTSA, even though they didn't even have a good shooting game in this game, Memphis, I mean, this is what they do. Memphis turns the ball over at a ridiculous rate, and they did, and that kept UTSA in this game. And UTSA was in this game in the final minutes, man. It was a 2-point game for like a multiple-minute stretch towards the end, and then they finally gave up some more points. So UTSA could have taken Memphis out in basically their biggest game of the year, man. At home, final home game of the year against Memphis. UTSA coming off of that, it does not look like a good spot to me at all. Charlotte has lost 3 games in a row. All of them on the road, though. So losing 3 games on the road, now they get to come back home, and it is their final game. I don't know how many seniors they have in their lineup. I mean, I guess we could look, but I don't know if it matters. I mean, final home game is going to be a game where I think they're going to show up focused. It's their last home game. All these teams are going to make the conference tournament, so that's not really a concern for either team. They're going to be some of the bottom seeds in the conference tournament. That doesn't really matter, but Charlotte, I think they're going to want to get this win at home, man. They haven't played UTSA yet this year, by the way, so there's no revenge aspect to this, but I think it's a bounce-back spot. They've lost 5 of their last 6 games, 4 of those 5 being on the road. Losing to North Texas, no shame in that. North Texas is pretty good. So Charlotte coming back home, I think it's a bounce-back spot. The last time they were at home, they were able to get a win over a Temple team. It's not that bad. And Charlotte, they got 3 conference wins this year, and I think they might all be at home. They beat USF, Temple, and Rice all at home. So they have definitely been better at home than on the road. On the road, completely winless, but they've been decent at home. UTSA, on the other hand, you want to look at their schedule. Look at their road games. When they've gone on the road, I don't know if some of these out-of-conference games are true road games. I mean, I guess we could see, but when they've gone on the road outside of the state of Texas, they don't have a win. Their only road wins are within the state of Texas. So UTSA, of course, is a Texas team as well. Like if you go to conference play here, they lost at Tulane. They beat Rice on the road, so that's, again, in-state. Lost at UAB, lost at FAU going to the East Coast like they are here. Won at North Texas. That was their biggest win of the year, probably. That was in Texas, though. They lost at Wichita State, lost at East Carolina, and lost at Tulsa. So they're like 0-5 or 0-6 in conference road games outside of the state of Texas. So they have been terrible in spots like this. So, again, for all those reasons, I will be on Charlotte Ken Bum has this being a 1-point game. He does have Nebraska winning by 7, by the way. I think so, kind of right in line with that. He has Charlotte losing this game by 1. I know Charlotte sucks. I know their defense sucks. They're in like the bottom 60, whatever, in defense. They play a slow pace. I think UTSA likes to play a little bit faster. Let me see. Yeah, UTSA plays significantly faster. So also kind of an advantage to the home team here, where Charlotte might try to slow the pace down, which will frustrate UTSA, who wants to play faster. And if they're not able to do that, then that's an advantage to Charlotte as well. Other than that, not a whole lot to see. I mean, neither of these teams are very good. UTSA is better on offense than defense. I think Charlotte also is. They're just worse at both. But in a spot like this, yeah, give me Charlotte for all the reasons I just said. That road record that I just pointed out for UTSA kind of clinches it, man. All right, let's go to the NHL here. Let's get this done. I'm not a huge NHL slate, but bigger than what you usually get on Sunday. Not a whole lot of games I really care about talking about, but Winnipeg, Carolina, this is a big one, so I will talk about this. I forget what my actual play is. Let me refresh my memory. Yeah, I'll talk about the game that's almost a play for me, which is a big game as well, and this game here, Winnipeg. Winnipeg is coming off smoking the Devils a couple games ago. They smoked the Devils, and now they're going down to Carolina to finish a road trip that's already been fairly successful. I mean, they're not going to overlook Carolina, but they are having to travel and coming off a very satisfying win over a pretty good New Jersey team. I don't know. Maybe that gives Carolina a little bit of an advantage here, man. And Carolina coming off kind of a whatever performance against my Boston Bruins, where they won the game at home, but it wasn't really an impressive win. Kochetkov was in net for them there. They've been kind of alternating between him and Anderson, even though I think Anderson is still the better of their two goalies. We'll probably get Anderson here. Don't know that it matters that much. Carolina has one extra day of rest, but will that start turning into rust because they have 3 games in a row? 3 wins in a row going into it? I don't know. I lean to the Carolina side here. They're down from minus 130 to minus 125, but they do have 54% of the cash on them, 60% of tickets on Winnipeg. I would lean to Carolina if I was going to play it. Columbus in New York. Columbus coming off a couple of losses down in Florida. They lost to Tampa in Florida. No shame in that, although, I mean, Columbus is trying to fight for a playoff spot here, even though I don't think Columbus is that good. They're certainly not very good defensively, although they could score. And we don't really want to say that many bad things about Merzlikins right now. We shouldn't bash Elvis that much here, but I think this is a better spot for them because they have 2 days off now. They're going up to New York, but with 2 days off to try to break that losing momentum that they had, I think they're going to show up focused, man. I mean, this is a game where both teams are kind of battling for playoff spots here right now. The Rangers are coming off 2 overtime games, and one of them was yesterday. So they lost to Washington. That was a big game. They went to Ottawa yesterday. Now they're coming back from Ottawa with no time off, and they lost that game in overtime. And that was a big game for the Rangers as well, because the Rangers are – Ottawa's one of the teams they're kind of fighting for to get a playoff spot here. So that was a big game, and they lost it. Columbus, though, is also another team they're fighting for a playoff spot. So I don't know that they're really going to overlook Columbus. They do have Winnipeg up next, which is a big game. But these Eastern Conference playoff battles here do matter. This is revenge for Columbus, quick road revenge, because on February 8th, the Rangers went into Columbus and beat them 4-3. So that does mean that this is a road revenge spot for Columbus. So that is a motivator for Columbus. But if you look at what's going on here, we're going to probably get Jonathan Quick in net for the Rangers. And he is still a good goalie, man. I mean, he's a very experienced goalie. Shesterkin is their better goalie. He's really good, but he's probably kind of getting a little bit tired. And in this back-to-back, you're going to get Quick in this game, almost certainly. I haven't looked to confirm that, but I would assume. But then, if you go back and you look at Quick, his last 3 games, the Rangers have won the last 3 games that he played, and it was against Vegas, who's a pretty good team. It was that Columbus game they won with Quick in net, and they beat Nashville. I mean, Nashville not playing up to their potential, but they played well with Quick in net, even though he did give up some goals in those other 2 games. He's been pretty decent for them, so I don't really want to try to come in and play Carolina, even though I do still lean that way because I think the spot is better for them. They have the rest advantage, and they're in a road revenge spot. But with Quick and net, it makes it a little bit questionable. And I think that's all I was going to say. I mean, I was just pointing out that Quick was the one who was in net in that last Columbus game, and he was probably going to be in net again here. So still lean to Columbus, but it's not strong enough that I'm going to actually play it. Rangers down from -150 to -134. I don't really see the percentages yet. 94% of the tickets, 100% of the cash is definitely not going to be right, but we'll see what happens. It looks like the line is being driven down on the Rangers, so it is moving in the direction of Columbus. Then we do have LA and Vegas. I mean, this is a big game. LA on a back-to-back. They finally broke that loss streak with a win last night, as I predicted, but only the money line portion of it hit for me, so it wound up being a slight win for me. I mentioned you could either just lay the puck line on that one or look towards the money line, and I decided to just be a pussy and split half the bet on the money line. But it wound up being the safer way, so I got out of there with just a slight win on that one. But now they're on a back-to-back. They're going to Vegas, which isn't a whole lot of travel. It is a big game for them, but the Kings beat Vegas the last time they played on the 24th of February, and that was the last win for the Kings before last night. So they're on a back-to-back, and this is revenge for Vegas. Vegas has extra rest here. They're coming off an easy win over Pittsburgh, and with no travel and staying at home. Not that it's that much travel to go from Anaheim to Las Vegas, but still. The spot sets up better, in my opinion, for Vegas, so that is the way I would lean. Vegas up from -170 to -181. 79% of tickets, 93% of the cash. So the cash is coming in on Vegas. I agree with that. My one hockey play is the Vancouver money line, +125. Hopefully Vancouver treats me well again, because the last time I played them as an underdog, they almost blew it and still got it done in overtime. And let's go back to it and do it again, man. We're going to fade the Dallas Stars, even though I know they're one of the best teams in hockey. One of the best teams in the Western Conference for sure. Dallas is on a back-to-back, so this might be a spot where they rest Ottinger and they played to Smith. And I know they've won the last couple of games against with the Smith in net, but he gave up some goals in those games, man. And two of them were against the Devils. So this game, though, it's a back-to-back, and this is, I think, a sandwich spot because I think Vancouver, they're at the point where they're not really playing that well, and I think they're going to get overlooked. Dallas is playing a third game in 4 days, all in different cities. It's actually a fourth game in 6 days, although the first two of them were at home. But one of them was an overtime game against Calgary. Then yesterday they were on the road at Edmonton, and they lost the game 5-4. A huge game against Edmonton. Edmonton got really physical on them in this game. Dallas actually committed no penalties, and they still lost the game. They were losing 5-2, and then they got back in the game early in the third period, actually. So for the last half of the third period, they were within 1 goal and almost made a giant comeback against Edmonton and fell just short. So coming off of that with no time off, looks like a very bad spot to me for Dallas. And as I was just looking at with their schedule, they got Winnipeg up next, man, which is another big game. Probably a bigger game than this Vancouver game, even though, yeah, they're going to have rest after this. But after the rest, Winnipeg and Colorado, I think they might overlook this Vancouver team, man. Vancouver, they're just staying at home. They're coming off a nice win over Minnesota, but I keep telling you Minnesota's a little bit overrated. They had yesterday off. They had a day off before the Minnesota game. So the travel advantage, rest advantage is all in the favor of Vancouver here. I think the scheduling spot sets up better for them. I mean, they got Dallas coming into their place. They're going to want to show up and play well for Dallas. I don't know if it's going to be Lankinen in net again or not, though. He's been their better goalie, but I don't think it matters that much. We're playing the spot here, and that's going to be a play on the Vancouver Canucks plus the money line in that one. Let me see. Sorry, I just closed the NHL schedule here. Trying to get this video done, man. So, yeah, that's the way I look in that one. And, yeah, that's all I was going to talk about for the NHL, I think. So, I guess I should have closed it. And then looking at the market, I guess, where is it? Where is this game? And there it is. Dallas as the road favorite, down from -140 to -134. 65% of tickets, 84% of the cash. It does worry me a little bit that the cash percentage looks like it's on them, at least for now, but the line is moving against them, and I'm going with the spot there, man. I think it's the spot play there. NBA, we have a decent-sized slate as well, kind of bigger than what you would expect on a Sunday. First game up at 1 p.m. on ABC. Denver and Oklahoma City. Huge game here, but Oklahoma City is the better team, and they are a big favorite here. Oklahoma City's still the best team in the Western Conference, I would say. Pregame not working for me as far as switching to the NBA slate here, the NBA board. Give me it, man. There it is. Thunder, it was like JavaScript was just not working or something. Thunder up from 7 to 7.5 with juice. So the line has been driven up on the Thunder, but they do have 58% of tickets and only 52% of the cash. So the Thunder are public with less of the money on them. So some market indicators going both ways here. So in that case, then you got to look at the situation. Denver, they're coming off a scare, man. They just played in overtime against Phoenix, a game that they probably should have won more easily than that. I think maybe they were looking ahead to this game against Oklahoma City. Now they're traveling over to Oklahoma City off of that game that they almost lost to a struggling Phoenix team. So I think that's going to have Denver definitely focused coming into this. Oklahoma City, they're just kind of rolling right now. I mean, they're not going to overlook Denver, though. I mean, both these teams are going to show up here. So you could wind up getting a more defensive battle here. I think the spot maybe sets up slightly better for Denver just because that last game might kind of shock them back into focus, whereas Oklahoma City is just kind of rolling right now. Would also kind of look towards the under in this game because I think you might get a tougher, more defensive battle between these two teams here. Total up from 242 to 244, juice to the under. It's 70% of tickets, only 66% of the cash on the over. Public is only going to play this game over. In a tough battle like this, man, like I said, I think you're going to want to look towards the under. Will, thank you, sir. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. And then we got next game up is it the game I'm playing? Yeah, it is. Phoenix and Dallas. I apologize, man, but I won't apologize if it wins. Dallas +8 is going to be my only NBA play today, man. We might get better than 8, actually, on this. We're going to fade the Phoenix Suns, who I think in the state that they're in right now, I think they have no business laying a line like this on the road, man. I mean, give me a break. Suns are up from 7 to 8 with juice. We might be able to get more than 8 points on this. 74% of tickets, 64% of the cash. So they are public with less of the cash on them. I hate the spot for Phoenix here. They're coming out of that overtime game I just mentioned. They took Denver into overtime. It was a huge performance for Phoenix. They actually played well 2 games in a row against the Clippers and then against Denver. Coming off of that, 1 day off, now going down to this Dallas team that's just massively injured. We know Dallas, I mean, they lost Kyrie for the season. They lost Anthony Davis for most of the rest of the season. So Dallas, a shell of themselves here. I don't even know who's playing. They've been without P.J. Washington. It looks like he is going to miss this game as well. He might come back in the next game. So we're going to have, yeah, I mean, it's the typical injured lineup for Dallas. They're playing with the same lineup that they've played with for the last couple of games now. But this spot is awful for Phoenix, man. And then tomorrow, they got to play Memphis, and then they got Houston, Sacramento, Lakers. All those games are against teams that are going to draw your focus more than this injured Dallas team. Memphis playing well right now with a really good record as well. This Phoenix team also, by the way, so not only is this a bad spot, I think a hangover spot and a sandwich spot with travel, but they were not playing well, man, since basically going into the All-Star break and then coming out of the All-Star break. They lost 4 games in a row, including one after the All-Star break. They beat Chicago only by 4, so they didn't cover that game either, I don't think. Lost at Toronto horribly. Lost at Memphis, which I think probably they covered that game because they were probably an underdog on the road there. Lost to New Orleans. Then they finally beat New Orleans, so they actually got a cover there, I guess. Got killed by Minnesota. So over that stretch, they only covered like 2 games. So they not only have not been winning, but they haven't been covering. And now you're asking them to lay points on the road coming off one of their biggest games of the season, basically. No, I don't think it's going to happen. And they still, I don't think, have really righted the ship here, even though I know I played them. I leaned to their side in that Clipper game, and I played them in the game against, I liked them in the zigzag against New Orleans. I don't remember if was that the game that I played them? It might have been, because I think I got a win on them not that long ago. And I think I was on them in the Chicago game, and they, I think, should have covered, but didn't. I forget. Whatever the case is, though, I mean, Kevin Durant, there was that whole weird trade situation. He was going to get traded, and then the team that was going to take him, I think he refused to go back to the Warriors or something like that because there's some beef going on or something he doesn't like there. I don't know what it was. Just very, very weird situation there. And Beal almost got traded as well or whatever. So this team is just in disarray, man. And I know Dallas, we know they're dealing with a ton of injuries, man, but they're still trying to play, I think, because they came within 10 of Memphis or within 11 of Memphis. So that wasn't that bad. And now they're staying at home. They're going to try to split this home and home. I mean, they got a decent Phoenix team coming into their place. I think they're going to want to get a win, man. Just try to get a win to right the ship. I mean, they haven't played well at all, haven't won since Irving has been out. So I think you're getting extra value on Dallas for that reason. Again, I mean, this Phoenix team has not been a team that's been covering at all. And now they're laying all these points on the road just because Dallas is massively injured and hasn't looked good. But this Dallas team, I think, is going to still have some fight in them. And you're getting a ton of points at home with them. In the spot like this, give me Dallas. Plus the points there. Cleveland is at Milwaukee. It's one of the other big games today. They're coming off barely beating Charlotte. So Cleveland definitely is coming off a scare there. So they might have been looking ahead to Milwaukee. Cleveland probably going to show up focus in this game for that reason. That'll probably shock them back into focus. But then again, Milwaukee is going to be focused as well. I mean, this is a big game for both teams. Milwaukee just got upset by Orlando, and I told you I liked Orlando in that game. Milwaukee just annihilated Dallas. Orlando was coming off a couple of really unacceptable losses as a favorite. So I liked Orlando just getting out of home, being on the road there. Maybe I should have played it. Milwaukee, I think the spot was better for the spot was better for Orlando in that one, and now Milwaukee's coming off that ugly performance against Orlando. So both teams should show up focused here. The Cavs are up from 8 to 9 here. 51% of tickets, 71% of the cash coming in on the Bucks. So the cash percentage looks like it's coming in on the Bucks, but Cavs, the line has been driven up on them a little bit. So I don't know what I think about the market read there. And then I really don't like the spot for Detroit. I mean, I was on them last night and they almost won at Golden State. Now they're turning around and going up to Portland with no time off to finish this road trip. So, yeah, it looks like a bad spot. It's a back-to-back of a big game. They're not rested at all. Problem is, you know what I'm going to say already if you know how I handicap these things. Portland is returning home from a road trip. So I do not like the spot for Portland at all, really. Returning home from a road trip, coming off games against Boston, Oklahoma City. Long road trip where they were on that road trip actually going all the way back to February 24th. They played 7 games on the road trip, and now they're returning home, and they get Detroit, and then they got Golden State tomorrow. They actually have to go back out on the road to play Golden State tomorrow. So this is one of those return home like sandwich spots there where you have a team that returns home for only one game, and they haven't been at home for a long time. They got stuff to do at home. You know, these guys still have families and stuff. They got to get stuff done at home. It can be a distraction, and they have to go right back out on the road to Golden State. Bigger game, and then the Knicks. So this is a terrible spot for both teams. So it's a spot where I would want to look towards the over probably. You might see like maybe some defensive lapses in a situation like this with teams being tired. It can affect the defense a little bit more, but maybe the lack of focus will affect the offense. I don't know. The line's up from 231 to 232. Juice to the over on the total there, but 64% of tickets on the over, but 58% of the cash on the under. So the cash percentage looks like it is coming in on the under. So I'm going to leave that whole thing alone. And then Sacramento is at the Clippers in a decent game between two teams that may be playoff teams. Sacramento coming off that win over San Antonio in the big De'Aaron Fox battle. Sacramento got the better of them. They got the better of me, unfortunately. Now they go on the road to face LA. I mean, I think they will be focused on this because it is a pretty big kind of in-state match up there. The Clippers have been playing decently. Clippers just got another nice win against the Knicks, so they might be feeling pretty good about themselves. I don't know which way I would lean here. The Clippers are up from 5.5 to 6, but they got 65% of tickets on them, but 65% of the cash coming in on the Kings, so it looks like the money is coming in on the Kings. Maybe I would slightly agree with that because the Clippers are coming off some bigger games. They're a bigger win over the Knicks than what the Kings are coming off of, so that's going to do it, man. That's the breakdown for today. Hour and a half, not horrible. Let's get this, tweet this video out and whatever. My plays one more time today are in college basketball, Nebraska -7.5. Please help me. Charlotte moneyline -105. Help me even more. St. Thomas -3.5. NBA Dallas +8 or 8.5, whatever's out there. NHL Vancouver plus 125. That's going to do it. Tower Gang Tone on Twitter, patreon.com/Tower Gang to support the best podcast ever, the most hilarious podcast ever. Tower Gang forever. Peace out, guys.